Hello all, I hope you're doing well today. I don't know if you've seen these clips doing the rounds of Jordan Peterson featuring on some show with a bunch of Reddit-style atheists. They're all quite aggressive, want to have a big old ding-dong. Good for ratings, that sort of thing. Not so good when you're discussing complex issues, but never mind, that's not the topic of the video. The point I want to make here is whether Peterson is now past his limit in what he was here to provide, and a spiritual context, a traditionalist context, for the Western world. What I mean is, it's very clear that he exploded on the scene 10 years ago or so with quite a moving and heartfelt mission to inspire experiential change in young men especially, and show them a value of their own tradition and fight back against the sort of nihilism of the age. Now, it deserves to be said that Peterson did very, very well with this. He inspired a whole generation to work harder on themselves, to work harder in principle, and many to even change their attitudes towards things such as religion. However, I think there was always a bit of a blind spot there for a spiritualist type like me, in that, it never really seemed to go over the line between actually moving away from the world into the spirit, but that's a minor criticism. He played a very important role in the embryonic stage of a reawakening in our culture, you could say. However, as I said at the top of the video, I do wonder if that era now is at an end, because Peterson's really turned more into a political provocateur now, and one that seems to have a sort of temper. And not only that, a lot of his arguments are being eaten alive by the atheist types, as we'll see. For context, this clip shows an aggressive Reddit tier atheist inquiring as to whether Peterson is actually a Christian or not.
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
how do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
No, okay, the kid's a bit aggressive, and it's easy to get these cheap, clippable wins over anyone. It happens to absolutely everybody in the political sphere. However, the point is, the kid does have a point. Many have pointed out, why is Jordan Peterson defending Christianity when he isn't even really a Christian, let alone maybe not even a believer himself? Yet the key here, and why I'm suggesting that we may be at the eve of Petersonianism, is because I think people are getting a bit tired of Jordan Peterson's unending psychobabble when it comes to terms. It seems now it's time to just commit to this path and try and explore it in a healthy and open way, rather than try and get away from things like, do you believe in God, or are you a Christian, with just lots of abstract waffle.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a Christian or you're not.
I won't talk to you if you're a smartass.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing. Right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Oh, that felt a bit needlessly mean to me, and that's the clip that's gone viral on the internet. It's a great atheist smackdown of Peterson, complete with that, oh my god, lady in the background. He went there. That's all very good for internet clicks. But the point is, I do think the kid's got a point. Peterson has accepted to be on a show called 20 Atheists versus a Christian. And when you start saying you're not even a Christian, and what does that mean? It does feel a little bit like you're just trying to kick the ball into the long grass. And it's not just atheists that have been sharing this clip. It's actually lots of Christians too who feel that Peterson, again, isn't really standing up for the cause and not the best person for this sort of clip. And it may seem odd that I'm saying we're coming to the end of Petersonism when in many ways he's bigger than ever. But the real question here is, bigger with who? Is he really big with the believing community on the one side, the mystic community on the other, even the atheists? It seems to me he's now bigger with the normie community, if you will, as sort of a self-help guru and people who agree with him politically. But as I say, I think the most objectionable thing is how Peterson goes off into academic waffle a lot of the time to redefine what terms mean. And ironically, that's what he got famous for critiquing the post-structuralist, pre-wokey types for. That's well exemplified in this clip.
Do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
That's the circular definition. What do you mean when you say you believe?
How is that circular?
Because you added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said, you think it to be true.
All right. So if
What's
you
a
believe
belief?
something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it and you die for it.
Now, I do like Jordan Peterson, and I don't want this video to come across like I don't. He's done a lot for many men, and I've learned a lot from him myself. But when he speaks like this, he doesn't have the energy of the thunderous seer of late Western civilization, but instead he seems a bit like a drunk guy that you'd see down the pub, who's getting a bit unclear and chaotic, and certainly a bit too intense.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay. So then,
How would you define belief? Something you say?
Can I explain? Like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone like threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right? Like, I think you would do that too. You wouldn't lie to save your life?
Don't be so sure.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like save your children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think lying would save them.
No, can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
Now, if you know Peterson's work very well and you've seen his biblical lectures, you'll know where he's going with this. Peterson is very much rooted around the Holocaust, and to him it's very much the key marker of Western civilization. It's what happens if you move away from the tradition. Now, of course, there is some transcendent truth in that. We move away from the tradition, we will descend more and more into darkness. But the point herein is that Peterson isn't so much speaking about the Christian tradition and belief in and of itself, but it's more his application of it through the lens of modern political ideology. And this is what this kid picks up on and gives quite a good response.
I'll give you an example. If you're like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them,
example.
Would you lie to like the Nazis? If
I
they're
would have
asking?
done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation
you
to begin
lie?
with. It's a hypothetical, and it's
You
not
can't answer
answerable.
hypotheticals?
No, I can't answer a hypothetical like
What?
that because
Did
it's
you eat
far.
today? Did you eat
Don't
today?
play games.
I'm not playing a game. I'm just
Yes,
asking if
you
you ate
are.
it today.
I just told you
hypothetical?
I would do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation. By the time you've got there, you've made so many mistakes that there's nothing you can do that isn't a sin.
Being born in Nazi Germany and trying to protect people that you care about, like there could be a Jewish friend that you have and you want to protect them.
I think you should
have
just
them in
give
your
up on
attic.
that line of questioning.
Personally, I don't see why that guy should give up that line of questioning. He was perfectly rational and polite, unlike the first guy. But as I say, it's not exactly the right format to talk about these complex matters when you only have 5 minutes and your opponents are looking for that gotcha moment. But I think there's a meta issue at hand here that I really want to get to. And that's that these debates are really nothing new. They've been going on for thousands of years. Atheists arguing against Christians, Muslims arguing against Buddhists, theists arguing against anti-theists. The list goes on. The point is that these worldly arguments, though useful philosophically and politically and socially and theologically, will never really be settled. If they were going to be settled, they would have by now after thousands of years of debate. But the point of me making this video isn't to pick needlessly on Jordan Peterson, but to inquire as to whether he's gone with his understanding as far as he can go in the culture. What I mean by that is I'm a strong believer that the West needs to be re-enchanted, the reintroduction of the spiritual path. But that depends upon people actually taking that path with their heart and soul, rather than just arguing with it with their mind because they're some sort of quasi-evolutionary agnostic. In my experience, embracing the spiritual path is an experiential thing. It's not about intellectualism. The intellect can play its role, but ultimately it's only going to block you when it comes to true awakening. And that seems like a gift for the modern atheist mind who says, see, look, these spiritual types want you to let go of your rational faculties so they can brainwash you. And further still, there are real instances of that. You get it a lot with the New Age movements. You get these women who go out to India, believe in all this dropping their ego stuff, and then there's all sorts of sexual abuse that goes on. That's obviously extremely cruel. But in my experience, in my view, while there is space and a dimension for rational discussion around spiritual and theological matters, if you're truly going to embrace the path of spiritual evolution, there does come a time where you have to let the intellect sink beneath the spirit. Now that isn't just anathema to modern atheists, but also many modern Christians who personally I would view as getting too institutional, too in the mind to in the world. That's why I'm interested in the mystic path, which you won't really see in many modern churches. It's really well expressed by St. John of the Cross, the famous Christian mystic. Quote, "The soul, in order to draw nearer to God, must pass through the dark night of the intellect, wherein all natural understanding is put to silence." This is what Christ refers to as the peace that passes all understanding, the place that the mind cannot reach, the core of the tradition, the heart of God manifests. And again, that doesn't mean we have no rational faculties. It just means the intellect is informed by the light of the Spirit first. And this is what modern man, whether Christian or atheist, struggles with so much. In fact, you could say that the big differential between modernity and the traditional world is the underlying assumption that the mind is all in modernity, that rationalism, intellectualism is the ultimate authority. Now, with the incredible advances of modernity, the technological revolutions, millions coming out of poverty en masse, it's very hard to argue against that. The issue is, however, that we move further and further away from what we truly are and move further into darkness. And it's not that we need to get rid of the intellect, but that it needs to be placed back correctly in the light of being, the light of God, or love itself. And this is the great crossroads that Western man now finds himself at. On the one side, we have the potential of the incredible intellect, but with that, in the words of Christ, comes the risk of gaining the world, but losing our soul while we do it. And on the flip side, we have the reawakening to an earlier, earthier wisdom beyond the intellect, that which can re-enchant the Western world and Western man with it. Which way we go will dictate the future of Western man and the Western world, arguably even the world itself. However, if we try and solve this issue on the intellectual plane, that's a total victory for modernity because it's on modernity's terms. And this is why I've changed the content on the Substack to be more about community, about doing group work that is aimed towards reawakening that wisdom that guides us, as I believe that's the only way to truly re-enchant ourselves and the Western world at large. Do join if you're interested. Now, we'll be holding a free call on the group work I'm doing in the 7-step path soon, so do join the Substack in preparation for that. It'll lay out everything to be expected, and you can ask any questions of me as well. Other than that, do enjoy the rest of your day and do subscribe to this channel if you're new.